Welcome to our YouTube channel, a place where the darkest corners of reality come alive through chilling audiobooks. Here, we bring you spine-tingling tales inspired by real crimes, untold mysteries, and the unseen horrors that lurk within society. So, sit back, turn off the lights, and prepare yourself for another terrifying journey into the unknown. It was a bitterly cold morning in Chicago, February 14th, 1929. The streets were frozen in silence, and the air carried that biting chill that seeps deep into bones. On 2212 North Clark Street, a brick garage stood quietly beneath the gray sky, its windows frosted over, its heart waiting to witness one of the bloodiest chapters in American crime history. The city was gripped by the war between two names that would echo forever, Al Capone and Bugs Moran. Both men had turned Chicago into a battlefield of bootlegging, revenge, and ruthless ambition. Every alley had a story, every gunshot had a reason, and every night ended with blood. Inside that brick garage, 7 men gathered, their breaths forming little clouds in the icy air. A truckload of stolen liquor was expected, precious contraband in those Prohibition years. They laughed, smoked, shuffled cards, unaware that death was just around the corner. Al Wineshank stood by the door, pacing nervously. James Clark, Bugs Moran's brother-in-law, checked his watch. "Moran's late again," he muttered. Frank Gussenberg, a man whose fists had broken many jaws, snorted, probably sleeping off another hangover. At exactly 10:30 a.m., the rumble of an engine broke the monotony. A police car pulled up outside the garage. Inside, 7 faces went pale. "Cops," someone hissed. The door opened with a screech. 5 men stepped out, 3 in police uniforms, 2 in plain clothes. Their boots crunched on the snow. The fake officers barked orders, waving their Tommy guns like authority incarnate. "Line up against the wall. Hand where we can see 'em." The 7 men obeyed, thinking it was a raid. No one resisted. They knew the drill. But this time, something in the air felt different. Too silent, too calm, too final. Without warning, the echo of machine guns shattered the stillness. Rat-a-tee-a-tee-tee. A rain of bullets tore through the garage, which splintered, concrete cracked, bodies jolted like puppets. The sound went on for nearly a minute, then silence returned, thick and terrible. The air reeked of gunpowder and blood. When the echoes faded, 6 men were dead. Only Frank Gussenberg clung to life, crawling, leaving a trail of red across the floor. "Who did this?" a policeman asked later at the hospital. Frank tried to speak, his mouth trembling, blood spilling with every breath. "Nobody shot me," he whispered, before dying hours later. Bugs Moran arrived minutes too late. He saw the police car, turned back, and vanished down an alley. He escaped death by mere seconds. Al Capone, sitting hundreds of miles away in his Florida mansion, smiled when he heard the news. "The boys did good," he said softly, but the city did not smile. It gasped. News spread like wildfire. Reporters swarmed the scene, their shoes soaking in melted snow and blood. The photographs were horrific. Bodies slumped against a brick wall, faces frozen in agony, hats and coats riddled with holes. Chicago had seen crime before, but never like this. The massacre marked the end of illusions. The gangs weren't just criminals anymore. They were executioners, soldiers in a silent civil war. The police found 70 shell casings, 2 Tommy guns abandoned, and cigarette butts near the getaway car. But no one was ever convicted. The city whispered one name, Al Capone, yet the law could never touch him. He was too smart, too powerful, too far away. As days passed, something strange began to happen on Clark Street. The garage remained empty, but people who walked by claimed they heard things. Soft murmurs, gunfire, and the echo of men shouting. At first, no one paid attention. Chicago was noisy, alive, chaotic. But when night fell, the air around that garage grew heavy. A milkman reported seeing shadows move behind the frosted windows. "I swear," he said, there were 7 of them, standing against the wall. Al Capone, despite his wealth and power, couldn't escape the ghosts. Late at night, he began hearing voices, muffled, pleading voices calling his name. Al. They came from nowhere, and yet they were always there. He tried to ignore them at first, dismissing them as guilt or paranoia. But then came the dreams, visions of James Clark, Bugs Moran's brother-in-law, standing in a pool of blood, staring at him with hollow eyes. "Why, Al?" the ghost whispered. "Why me?" Capone woke up sweating, trembling his chest tight. "It's not real," he muttered. But every night it returned. His servants began whispering too. They said Capone often yelled at nothing. He'd pace the halls, screaming, "Get out! Leave me alone." One maid quit after seeing him talking to an empty chair, his face pale, his hands shaking. Desperate, Capone sought help from a medium. In 1931, he arranged a seance, candles flickering, a table surrounded by trembling hands. The medium called out, "Spirit of James Clark, are you here?" The room grew cold, unnaturally cold. A gust blew through, snuffing out one of the candles. The table shuddered. Capone's heart pounded. Then, in a whisper that chilled every bone in the room, came a voice. "I am here." Capone screamed, falling back in terror. The medium fainted. When the candles were relit, Capone's cigar had burned to ash. The haunting never stopped. Even when he was sent to Alcatraz, prisoners reported hearing him cry out at night, "Jimmy, stop, leave me be." His cellmates avoided him. Guards said they heard him talking, laughing, and sometimes begging for forgiveness when no one was near. When Capone died in 1947, his nurse swore she heard him whisper his final words, "They're coming for me." Years turned into decades. The garage at 2212 North Clark was demolished in 1967, but the hauntings didn't end. They simply moved into the ground itself. Tourists who visited the empty lot said they felt uneasy, as if watched by unseen eyes. Some said they heard machine guns rattling faintly in the wind. Dogs refused to go near the spot, whining and pulling at their leashes. Local residents began calling it the Cursed Corner. Taxi drivers avoided stopping there at night. Paranormal investigators set up cameras and recorders, capturing strange phenomena. Echoes of gunfire, misty human shapes, and faint whispers of laughter. One recording caught a deep, raspy voice saying, "Line up against the wall." Another captured the sound of a man gasping, "Don't shoot," followed by silence. A Chicago Tribune reporter once claimed that when he stood on the exact spot where James Clark's body had fallen, he felt a hand grip his shoulder, but no one was there. In modern times, the HCPRI paranormal investigators announced their plan to examine the site. Their lead investigator, Hannah Reeves, was known for her skepticism. "Ghosts don't scare me," she said confidently, loading her camera. "I'm here for facts, not fairy tales." On a windy October night, they arrived at the location, armed with thermal cameras, EVP recorders, and a deep curiosity. The city's hum had quieted. Only the wind whistled between old brick buildings. They marked the ground where the wall once stood. "This is it," said Reeves. 7 died here. Let's see if they're still around." At first, nothing happened. Then, around midnight, a sudden chill swept through. The temperature dropped by 10 degrees. Their cameras flickered. One of the team members, Alex, froze. "Did you hear that?" Everyone turned. A faint tapping echoed, like footsteps. Then came the sound. Rat-a-tat-tat-tat. The noise of machine guns erupted out of thin air. The team ducked instinctively, hearts pounding. It's residual energy. Reeves shouted over the chaos. Playback from the past. Then silence. They checked their recordings. The gunfire was real, clear as day, but there was more. A whisper, low, strained, unmistakable. "Tell Al, I'm still here." The team stared at each other in disbelief. Reeves, pale, turned off her recorder. "We got something," she whispered. "We definitely got something." When they packed up, none of them spoke. But as they left, the wind carried a faint laugh, a cruel, mocking laugh that faded into the night. Today, the massacre lives on not only in history books, but in whispers, in cold spots, in the echoes that refuse to fade. People who live near Clark Street say they still hear the sounds, the laughter of gangsters, the roar of Tommy guns, the screams that pierce the night. The city tries to forget, But the past is teeth. It bites into memory, into fear, into every story that begins with, "Did you hear that?" Even after nearly a century, the souls of those 7 men linger, bound to the violence that ended them. Al Capone's empire crumbled. His name turned to legend, but his ghost stayed behind. Reminders that power gained through blood leaves stains that never wash away. Sometimes, when the wind howls down Clark Street, it sounds like laughter, cold, distant laughter. And if you stand still just for a moment, you might hear a whisper drift past your ear, line up against the wall. Then the air freezes, and for a heartbeat, you can almost see them. The 7 figures standing against that invisible wall. Shadows of a crime that refuses to die. The St Valentines Day Massacre isn't just history. It's a haunting, a curse carved into the bones of Chicago. And every February 14th, as the city sleeps, those echoes rise again. The gunfire, the screams, the silence, the ghosts of Clark Street return. And they never left.